worked well. But again, for something like SMEs, we have got 800 series that can be able to run comfortably with all the features turned on for maybe 500 guys, 200 also. Then the 3000 series, again, this is what most of the banks like, and the 5200 series, this is what they really like. And 7000 for MSPs and also telcos, right? Very beautiful there. So up to this moment, I wanted to move to use cases. Before that, I wanted to see if there are questions. So if there are questions, please you can bring them on before I move to use cases. Any questions so far?
Yes, Rob.
All right. So there's no question. So we can proceed to use cases, after which, guys, I'll share you the hands-on labs so that we can have a look at the feeling of how the solution looks like. Is there something that we need to make sure that we can be able to get from like we see how the interface looks like? Also to have that kind of the difference between how you can be able to come up with these application-based policies, right? So for these plain things like we talked about the application identification. Again, I want to reiterate that this is free. Just a minute. I'm seeing Rohan raise the. Just a minute. Rohan, you had a question or? Rohan, you had a question?
No, Ezra, we can go ahead.
Okay, sure.
Rohan, if you have any question, let me know.
All right. So, okay, so let's move to the use cases. So now, yes, we've seen some great capabilities on how you can be able to consume this. We've seen again how we can try to reduce the cost by putting all these solutions together. We've seen how competitive again Palo Alto can be. For example, application identification, this is a free. Unlike other solutions like maybe Cisco or FVC, you have to allow application policy and control. You need to have this kind of a license, application and visibility and control, AVC license. So we've seen how we can again try to scale the kind of innovations that we can be able to have. And then now we'll try to have maybe some 10 minutes or so, try to understand how this can try to help us in our environment. So one of the business use cases, again, we'll see, is PCI and DSS compliance. Right? So what is this PCI DSS compliance? Right? So PCI DSS, this is mostly for the guys who are doing online transactions, using our cards, for example, to do online payments. So part of this is really for the banking sectors, whereby this organization that's called a PCI DSS or payment card industry data security standards, they have to make sure that you create an environment that's going to segregate these servers that contains this kind of critical infrastructure from anybody trying to access. There's this concept also for least privilege, to make sure that you only give someone access to what they need and during that time. Then there's also Swift compliance. So Swift is a framework for banks to do their financial transaction. So it's normally called Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication System. So this allows them to do some kind of huge transfers, interbank, and also for large corporates. So how can we make sure that this is happening, or how can we be able to handle this kind of compliance? We saw some kind of months ago whereby there was a huge money heist that happened in one of the banks in Asia, and this is because of some kind of compliance issues. So if they had some PCI DSS compliance or Swift compliance, then they could have not met such kind of scenarios. So what does PCI, for example, DSS say? So this framework requires that these organizations make sure that they install faster firewall. So this is aiming at, we talked about that PCI is for payment cards industry, so which means that it's going to have maybe a server that's going to handle this kind of credit card based transaction. So we need to have a system that can be able to discover and also profile, for example, this critical data, for example, PII, that is a personally identifiable information. So we need to make sure that we've got a solution that is content aware, for example. So Palo Alto again can be able to understand that this kind of a pattern is for the credit card numbers. So it contains some customer critical data that needs to be kept or preserved in an environment that not anybody can be able to get access to. So requirement number two is to make sure that we don't do defaults that we talked about earlier on, because of the limitations in terms of skills, limitations in terms of the time that it might take for us to deploy. For example, we might be having a lot of issues with guys who are trying to access maybe some application, and because of some of the changes that were done, we need to make sure that we change our policies. So we go to their policy, we say any, or we do defaults to make sure that these can be able to traverse. So this kind of policy, sometimes we tend to forget them, and this introduces some kind of gaps into our infrastructure. Then we have to make sure that we consuming most of these solutions in an encrypted format. So from the Google list research, we think that 85% of the data by 2020 or so will be running on HTTPS. So the solution that we are going to have is to make sure that the firewall has to do decryption again without affecting what? The performance. So we have to make sure that whatever the communication that's going to happen with these kind of servers that are handling card holder data are encrypted. So we have to also to make sure that we protect all this against malware, the bad guys out there. Maybe it might be something to do with the ransomware. So these guys will take this data, for example, the cardholder data, and they'll ask for something. So if we don't protect against these malwares or ransomwares, then we have a problem here. Yeah. So we make sure that whichever the applications that we are also trying to develop, they are made with security in mind. We also have to make sure that we have physical accesses, maybe biometric access control systems, to make sure that not anybody is accessing the data center, and so on and so on. There are around 12. So this is again to make sure that all these things have been done. So if you look at this kind of framework, there's also another one for Swift. They tend to look almost the same. The objectives, the principles, and the controls. So you'll see something like controls. The physical aspect again is going. The physical access is going again to come under the same framework. So they tend to make sure that there is security as much as you are allowing the user data to to go in and out of the network is to make sure that it's going to go safely and to make sure that there is no compromise that's going to come to this kind of infrastructure that is holding this kind of solution. So the traditional layout again is just having a router and the servers are just exposed. So what it means is that any user within these three workstations can be able to access the cardholder services. So let's say this is the guy from HR department or sales department who was trying to access, who came up with maybe this kind of remote access tools to allow guys to access the cardholder data. Then all this is going to go out in an encrypted format. You don't have this kind of visibility of the remote session that is happening because it's encrypted. Then maybe there is another ad hoc network that has been created in one of these PCs. So we have to make sure that there's some kind of segregation between these solutions. So the compliant network design is to make sure that there is complete segregation through segmentation of different servers. For example, cardholder data, you can see it in a green color. So it has been now behind a firewall, which is Palo Alto, and you create policies that only allow the finance users, just like the one that we had talked about creating for the remote access tools. Only the IT guys are supposed to be and create policies that allow only users and the username based policies, so that tomorrow you can have a report is that it's only Edwin who was trying to access this, right? So again, from a Swift perspective, again, we make sure that there is complete segmentation of Swift network from just the general IT infrastructure. So it's just the same like the other one for Pci Dss or for the cardholder servers being segmented. So an overview on how the design should look like. This is how it's supposed to be looking like. So you can see multicolors here. Orange for orange zone. Again, Palo Alto is a zone-based firewall. So you come up with a zone for Pci servers. Swift servers, again, their own zone. And the other people can be able to be on this zone. So, for example, you can have a separate network, maybe say finance zone, and create an explicit rule that allows only guys in finance zone are the only guys who are supposed to be accessing what? The Pci zone. And maybe come up with a policy that prohibits guys from accessing from the, let's say, remote access VPN, right? Then also have the second site. So this is for again for high availability. So for those guys, again, you can be able to combine the core and the aggregation to be something like a collapse core architecture, whereby that is one access, maybe that's a switch, then people can be able to access that one from two-tier approach, right? So the essence of this is to make sure that there is an explicit policy that allows interzonal communications, right? So for example, by default, you cannot be able to access Pci to Swift zone unless now you create a policy that's going to allow this to happen. So this is one of the business use cases. And again, because of time, I might not be able to touch on all the kind of scenarios and the best way in order we can be able to address this. But at least this gives us some kind of approach on how we can be able to apply this kind of policies and get the best out of this. Okay, fine. So we can talk also very fast on prevention of credential theft. So this is whereby maybe we can find some guys, we are not the same age, again is an issue. So there are some guys who write their password on a sticky note. They stick it on the computer, and these are the senior guys in the infrastructure who might be having critical data towards what? Towards this kind of infrastructure. So how can we prevent someone who has seen this password from accessing this kind of services? So this is where Palo Alto enforces multi-factor authentication to make sure that if someone is trying to access this kind of critical data, then we have got this policy that triggers multi-factor authentication that is going again to send a code to his mobile phone to enter, so that now they can be able to consume this kind of resources, right? So we also have, because of the content awareness, we can also be able to see people who are trying to give their credentials to third party or other policies or other websites, which we know that might be risky, and we can be able to block such kind of sessions. So that can again maybe augment the phishing email security. So if someone maybe the credential phishing had already been done, this is why again you can be able to come up with a way in order to make sure that we block corporate credentials from being submitted to the other sites which might be vulnerable, right? So again, this is how one of the things that you can use here. You can see is wildfire PANDB, which again leverages on that URL license, URL license that we talked about. We know all these bad sites from RDB, then we can prevent this either via phishing. So if we get into the email, pick that URL. Once we pick this URL, we know that this URL falls under the malicious sites after looking at our PANDB, which contains a URL of these bad guys. Then you can also be able to block this kind of threats. So again, we talked about these MFA challenges. Some of these applications that are built and some of the legacy applications that we have, they don't have this kind of two-way two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication in them. So this is where we can come in and provide these MFA based policies before they can be able to access this critical infrastructure. So integrate MFA into each application. This is again
Hello.
not. Yep.
Hello. Can you hear me? I'm
Yes.
unable to see your screen. It's a blank screen. Are you presenting something or?
Oh yes, yes, yes. You can see it's still blank.
Yeah, it's still blank.
I don't know whether this. Ari, can you see it?
No.
Okay, thanks, Rohan, for that. Maybe it has crashed.
Yes, we can see that presentation. You can go ahead, Ezra.
Okay, thank you. All right. So the challenges that we are getting. So this is how this is supposed to be addressed. The MFA challenges and the solutions that we can be able to provide. So why is this? Is because some of the applications that we're running might be legacy, which cannot allow multi-factor authentication to be incorporated unless maybe they work on it. So this introduces challenges. So by incorporating this at the firewall level, we can be able to enforce multi-factor authentication on a firewall level without impacting on the applications or legacy applications that we normally use. So we can also prevent it. I talked about this, prevent use of stolen credentials. So we can again be able to do this once we enforce multi-factor authentication. Then these users cannot be able to get into this kind of infrastructure, because the token is going to be sent to the other user's email, or a session code or OTP can be sent to their mobile, which they might not be having during this time. So you can see we support um, we support Ping ID, Okta, and Duo. For Radius RSA, also SafeNet, we also support that one. For identity, and authentication purposes, so primarily can be Caperos, the Stackax, Radius, and LDAP, and also SAML for the third party. That is SAML version 2.0. All right. So I'll take one short break, maybe 5 minutes, after which we need to have a session. We need to have a session for Kahoot, I guess. So there are a few questions that are supposed to be coming on board. So during this time also, if we have questions, I'll also take time to try to understand, to answer a few questions. All right. So I can see one question is, as part of good security practice, an organization might want to mix two different firewall products. Do you recommend using PA firewalls on the inside or on perimeter? All right. So Palo Alto can be able to work on any level, on the DC part or on the outside part. So Palo Alto can be able to be anywhere. So for example, it can be used to be a DC firewall, for example. Then for this matter, you might not need all those internet facing applications like things like URLs. For this, you might need only threat prevention and wildfire for you to achieve this. So again, to answer your question, can be able to be used for the DC firewall, and also can be able to be a gateway or internet for perimeter. I hope this makes sense. So how do you uh, implement the MFA on the firewall as this solution scalable enough so an organization no longer need to get standalone MFA solution? All right, again, standalone MFA solution, again, we talked about some solutions are not built to handle MFA. They are not integratable, for example, the legacy-based solutions. So this is why you might need this to be implemented on MFA level. So again, this can also increase a lot of visibility, because this is going to be logged on the firewall level to understand that this user is trying to access this kind of application. So if we could have implemented this separately, we might not get this kind of visibility. And secondly, is that not all the applications support this kind of approach, the MFA approach. Yeah, so this is where we come in. All right. All right, so I think those are the two questions. So if you again have questions, just leave them. We'll try to answer all of the questions. All right. So 5 minutes break. We'll be back to with Kahoot, where we'll take a few questions, and I think there are few there are few gifts that Harry can be able to give after this. All right. So I'll be back in 5 minutes or less with the Kahoot.
It's a your screen is not visible. Hello, hello.
So guys, I hope your devices are ready.
Yeah, yeah. It's please go ahead with count and then
Okay, so get your devices ready. I'm sharing a link where you need to put the pin. So kindly go to kahoot.it. Kahoot is sorry, KAHOOT.it.
We are unable to see your screen. It's blank. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Rogan, we are going to do a Kahoot app quiz session right now.
Okay.
So you
Okay.
can join the Kahoot app.
Okay.
So Yatra will present the
Just
questions and
repeat.
give the answer.
Okay. And what is the pin?
Yeah, pin will be Yatra will be starting right now. Yatra, can you share the pin so that everyone can join on the Kahoot app?
So I so I'm writing the pin just down on the chart. So the pin is 1675. Let me write it on the presentation. Just a minute. I hope you can see the. Can you see the pin?
No,
Ari,
Ezra.
Ari, can you see the pin?
No, no. You please share the presentation, then we can see.
Ari,
Yeah, right now we can see. Hello.
I hope everyone is ready. Just a minute. So we're starting. Ali,
Yeah, Ezra. Hello, hello.
guys, I can't see any player. I don't know whether you got a pin. I can't see any player online. I don't know whether you can be able to see the game pin. 4093953. Guys, can you be able to see the pin? I can only see one player. Ronnie is join. Anybody who is having a challenge of getting online, I can see G Swiss Breed 2, 2 players. Let's give them more time, maybe 1 or 2 minutes. I can only see 2 players. Still, I can see 2 players only, Jesus and Ronnie. Again, the pin is 4093953. And should we give them more time to join, or what do you think?
Yeah, give them another 5 minutes time. Guys, please join on cloud.it so that we can start the quiz session and you will find the more attractive questions and on and you can answer that. Thank you, guys.
So as they are joining, so does PAMFA integrate with a randomized client token software, for example? Yeah, I think I talked about that one. So currently we support a few MFA vendors. So I talked about PID, SRSA. So I don't know whether you can remember the screen. So for identity primary authentication, we support SAML or a secure session markup language. We have Caperos, Takax Plus, Radius, and Elder for authentication. And secondary authentication is Duo, Ping ID, Okta. Yeah, we also support Radius for RSA and SafeNet. So those are the kind of third-party IMFA providers that we support. Then does Palo Alto Firewall have a synchronization with their endpoint security? Yes, this is very possible. So actually from it's called traps. I didn't talk about traps endpoint. Maybe we'll talk about it at maybe another session. So traps can be able from 5.0 can be able to act like a sensor on the network. So this sensor again can be able to get data, some analytics metrics from the data or whatever that it has seen. And so via panorama, it can be able to also send a signal, be able to isolate this device if it has discovered that maybe it's compromised. So again, it can be able to do synchronization with the endpoint security, and it can be able also to segregate It can also be able to share whichever the information that the endpoint has seen to the Cortex data lake, which again can help improve the intelligence and also share to other endpoints and also other firewalls. I hope this is in order. If you have a question again, you can leave it below, then we try to answer it. So let me see how many users more. So I can see Isaac and Ronnie. Maybe more
Yeah,
time.
Ezra, you can sort the question.
Sorry.
You can go ahead with the questions. Those
Okay, okay,
questions.
sure. Oh, I can see someone else's son. So son is on board. Maybe anybody who wants extension, leave a chat. Maybe you're struggling with the internet. I can see three now. I don't want to lock anybody outside because again, because of time, we need to move to labs very fast. Right? Okay, so I can't see anybody requesting for more time. I think we can proceed. Okay. Question number one. Oh no. Sorry guys. Ooh. Sorry guys. Please ignore that one. Just- I spin the wrong quiz. So sorry. No. Very sorry. I think I've got a couple of Kahoots. I chose the wrong one. I think we can. I can share the links. We do the labs. Then I fix my Kahoot. Maybe I can be able to interject in 20 minutes. Then we can be able to share that one. Think something is amiss somewhere. Sorry guys, we'll do Kahoot shortly. So what I'll do, I want to share the link to the online labs. I see what's happening in the Kahoot. Uh, So I'm sharing with you the link that you use to access the